senator of the great state of Texas, presidential candidate who's drawing significant crowds across this country and building in most polls that I'm seeing. Ted Cruz joins us now. Senator, great to talk to you. How are you?
Laura, I'm doing terrific. Great to be with you.
That event yesterday on sanctuary cities on Capitol Hill, in my mind, crystallized what's wrong in Washington. The basic duties of the federal government not being fulfilled and, in fact, being impeded, as you referenced. Are you getting the support that you need in the Senate to actually take a principled stand against this, given the fact that apparently that sanctuary cities bill was blocked?
Well, it was, and it was a moment of clarity because the Democrats, at least when they campaign, they claim that they support securing the border, and yet you saw the Democrats in a party line vote block a bill. It was a very simple bill that was on the Senate floor. What it did is it denied federal funds to sanctuary cities that actively defy federal immigration laws. And it included within it Cates Law, which is the law I introduced in the Senate, that provides that if an illegal alien re-enters and he's an aggravated felon, that he has a mandatory 5-year prison sentence. And the Democrats over and over again gave speeches about how immigrants are wonderful people, which has nothing to do with cities that are inviting violent criminal felons and illegal aliens to their city. And it was a real moment of clarity to see the Democrats make their positions clear. Now, I've called on Republican leadership. We had the vote yesterday. You know, we ought to continue pressing this issue, and we ought to pass this legislation by attaching it to must-pass legislation instead of giving the Democrats the ability to block it. I think leadership has very little interest in doing that, but that's what we should be doing.
Another issue, before we get to what the establishment apparently has in store for you, Paul Ryan, of course, issued his list of demands for considering the speakership. And I know that's the other chamber, and you might not want to get into that all that much. But on the substance, given the fact that you decided to oppose the fast-track trade authority for Obama and the fact that the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal looks like it's already cooked into the books, I want to play for you something that Paul Ryan said in June on trade.
I think the president on this particular issue is right, and therefore I think this is good for our country, good for the people I represent. Trade is very important for America.
Why would I, as a conservative, give President Obama a win?
Yeah. The perception is that Trade Promotion Authority is Congress granting authority to the executive. It's far from it. It's actually quite the opposite. It says more accountability, more transparency, congressional involvement, and Congress has the final say on trade agreements.
Is that true in this current trade scenario, Senator?
Well, we're going to have before Congress the TPP, and we're going to have an opportunity to see just how true that is or not. At this point, the text still has not been made public.
But he said it was transparent, Senator. He said it's transparent, and Congress is going to have all this ability to review and revise. Orrin Hatch, a few days ago, apparently said he's livid because they actually aren't going to have that input, and that the negotiating rules, all of it was already cooked.
Well, we will see when the TPP text becomes public. It has not yet become public, so I have not read the final text yet, and we're not going to vote on it until it has been, under the terms of the law, Congress is not going to vote on it until the text is public for 60 days. And so, listen, I have some real skepticism about TPP. I want to wait and read it first before making a final decision, but the behavior of the Obama administration has been so untrustworthy for 6.5 years that I'm going to be very interested to see what the text of this agreement is, what it does, if anything, to undermine our immigration laws, what it does, if anything, to undermine our sovereignty. And then those are both going to be questions I know you're going to look at, I'm going to look at, an awful lot of people are going to look at very closely when the text is made public.
Senator, this is what New York Times reporter Jeremy Peters said yesterday on my program.
If Ted Cruz continues to rise, if he becomes kind of one of the last men standing, as a lot of smart tacticians think he will, you are going to see the Washington establishment, the people who serve in the Senate, the Republicans who serve in the Senate with Ted Cruz, campaign against him. They will go to, I've been told this by Republican senators myself, they will go to those states where Ted Cruz is gaining in popularity, and they will say, do not elect this guy.
Your reaction, could you give us some insight as to who those people are?
Well, look, we'll see who chooses to do that. And, it is one of the amusing aspects of the D.C. establishment that they believe they have the power to render judgment on who is fit to serve. They do not understand the American people are so furious with Washington. And there is a reason that career politicians in this town are fighting so vigorously against my effort to shine the light on what they're doing and change how this town operates.
Do they fight as hard against Obama, Senator? Do they fight as hard against Obama and his executive overreach as they do against you?
Not even close. They don't fight at all against Obama. Right now, Republican leadership spends all of their time fighting to defeat conservatives. They don't spend any time trying to honor the commitments that were made to the men and women who elected us. They don't spend their time trying to defeat Obama. In fact, what they focus on is funding Obama's priorities. You know, we've got now John Boehner saying before he steps down as Speaker, he wants to cut one last deal with Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats to raise the debt ceiling and fund Obama's priorities for the rest of his administration. What on earth is happening when Republican leadership operate as the most effective Democratic leaders Congress has ever had? That's the situation. And the reason they're ticked off with me is because I say it out loud. I actually say this is what they're doing, that if Republican leadership in the House and Senate take the lead in funding Obamacare, take the lead in funding amnesty, take the lead in funding Planned Parenthood, take the lead in funding this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal, that we're not using our constitutional authority to actually represent the men and women who elected us. And just as importantly, they're not honoring the promises they made when they were running for office. What I urge everyone in Congress to do, it's not complicated. Let's do in 2015 what we said we would do in September and October and November of 2014. Washington does not want to do that, and they're furious that anyone would dare highlight.
You're the enemy, but you're the enemy. I've heard this and behind closed doors. You are their enemy. And I would say when the answer to your rise in the polls, Trump and Carson, your rise, Trump, Carson's rise, their answer is we're going to put Paul Ryan up as Speaker, and he's not going to work weekends or campaign for people. I mean, did you ever work weekends as a summer associate or as an associate in a law firm, Senator?
Yeah, Laura, as you know, I've worked weekends pretty much my entire life and continue to today. And you know what the American people do? I mean, look, I had 2 jobs to pay my way through college because my parents went bankrupt when I was in high school. But here's the sad reality. Washington is working. It's just not working for us. It's working for the Washington cartel, for the lobbyists. It's growing and growing and growing in power. And the reason we have this fairly amazing Republican primary that we have is people want someone to stand up to Washington. And I think the reason our campaign is getting so much momentum is they're naturally asking the follow-up question, okay, who actually has stood up to Washington, not just to Democrats, but to leaders in their own party?
Ted Cruz, it is great to talk to you.